A sentencing hearing is underway right now for the former Fort Stewart soldier found guilty of opening fire at the military facility last year. Last Thursday, military court found Sergeant Cornelius Radford guilty on 6 specifications of attempted murder in connection to the incident that injured 5 fellow soldiers. During the trial, the prosecution argued that Radford intended to kill those soldiers he injured and he sought out his commanding officers. Meanwhile, the defense argued that Radford intended to provoke a deadly encounter with police and die in a shootout. WSAV's Evan Smoke is in court for today's proceedings and will bring us an update as soon as that hearing ends. A man accused of causing a deadly accident in Effingham County has entered a plea of not guilty. 27-year-old D.B. Jansasoy is facing 2 counts of first-degree homicide by vehicle, as well as charges of driving under the influence and reckless driving. Prosecutors say Jansasoy was drunk when he caused a crash on May 1st that killed Michael Sharp. Now, this happened on Old Augusta Road in Rincon, and investigators say Jansasoy's blood alcohol concentration was more than twice the legal limit at the time of that accident. Meanwhile, the Effingham County Sheriff's Office is asking for your help finding this man on your screen. This is Donald Stokes, known to many as DJ, and he's wanted on active warrants for trafficking controlled substance, possession of a firearm during commission of a crime, and possession of tools for commission of a crime. If you see him or know where he is, you're asked to call the Sheriff's Office. Well, Savannah police are looking for suspects after a shooting happened over the weekend. It happened around 1:30 Saturday morning on East 65th Street. They say one man was found at the scene with a gunshot wound and he was taken to the hospital for treatment. No arrests have been made and that investigation is ongoing. If you have any information, you're asked to call Crime Stoppers at that number on your screen. That's 912-234-2020. Well, the city of Port Wentworth is looking to become a member of Chatham Area Transit's tax district, but Chatham County has blocked that from happening. WSAV's Isley Herschel is in studio now to explain both sides.
Tyler, that's right. Chatham County Commission Chairman Chester Ellis says a legal battle between the county and the transit service needs to be resolved before anything else can happen in this matter. At last week's budget meeting, one alderman brought this up, asking how much the budget would be affected if Port Wentworth permanently joins CAT's tax district. When Port Wentworth city manager tried to state their case, Chairman Chester Ellis refused to let him speak. Port Wentworth is currently under a contract with CAT, but wants to join permanently because of the city's expansions. In a statement, the city added that bringing Port Wentworth into the CAT tax district would generate roughly $1 million for CAT services, end quote. However, Chairman Ellis says the legal battle between Chatham County and CAT must be settled before anything else can be done.
Port Wentworth has sent me a letter, all right, asking me that we do a resolution to allow them to join the transit district. I sent them a letter back saying that we're not going to do that until after the litigation is over, because that's a part of what's going on now. That's why I would not let them speak, because that's already in the attorney's hands.
Port Wentworth city leaders say Chairman Ellis's decision is undermining CAT's mission to connect communities with people and places that they need, end quote. Isley Herschel, WSAV News 3, on your side.
Thank you, Isley. WSAV is your local election headquarters, and tomorrow voters will head to the polls for South Carolina's runoffs elections. The races will determine which candidates will advance to the general election that's happening in November. Now, if you voted in the primary, you can only vote in the same party's runoff, and you must bring a valid photo ID to cast a ballot. Polls will be open from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. Both Republican and Democratic nominations for South Carolina's 1st Congressional District are up for grabs. Nancy LaCour is a former admiral and former Republican that's running as a Democrat. She received the most votes in last week's primary. Mac DeFord came up short in his last run for this seat 2 years ago. He says his goal is to get the people who didn't vote for either candidate the last time to cast their ballot for him on Tuesday. The 1st District race is the only Democratic runoff on the ballot tomorrow. Republican voters will choose their nominee between State Representative Mark Smith and Charleston Councilwoman Jenny Honeycutt. Meanwhile, President Trump is weighing in on the state's Republican governor runoff before the primary. He endorsed Lieutenant Governor Pamela Yvette, but now he's endorsing both her and Attorney General Alan Wilson in the runoff. In a social media post, he says he hoped a runoff would come down to Yvette and Wilson and does not want to hurt one by endorsing the other, saying, quote, "It's a wealth of riches with either one. You can't go wrong," end quote. Again, South Carolina's runoff election is tomorrow. And for more information about the races, all you got to do is visit our website, wsav.com/electionhq. A steady rise in flu cases has prompted health officials to take action. They are urging people to check their vaccination status, and WSAV's Danielle Ruddy has more on what steps you need to take to make sure that you're not at risk.
A confirmed case of measles in Beaufort County has put a spotlight on a disease that hasn't been widespread for years. Health officials say because it's so contagious, knowing the symptoms of measles and how to protect yourself is more important than ever. Measles is one of the more contagious viruses. Health officials say a 95% vaccination rate is needed to prevent it from spreading. In South Carolina, that rate is around 90%, while some neighboring states have dropped into the 80% range. Officials say one way to keep you and your family safe is to recognize the early signs of the illness.
As far as signs and symptoms, it would be essentially a very high fever. Someone would develop a cough, a runny nose, injected or red eyes. They would develop something called Koplik spots, which are white plaques inside the cheek. And eventually it would be a whole body rash that would start at the face, move down to the chest and abdomen, and then to the extremities. People are most infectious when they're starting when those initial symptoms develop, and up to 4 days after the rash develops.
If you're experiencing symptoms, health officials advise you to isolate yourself to prevent the disease from spreading. With the new outbreaks occurring, they say staying vigilant is crucial. In Beaufort County, I'm Danielle Ruddy, WSAV News 3 on your side.
Happening later on tonight, the Tybee Island Planning Commission is holding a meeting to update residents on plans to regulate short-term vacation rentals. We've been telling you how the council is looking to limit the number of STRs by sectors. They say the goal is to balance the need for tourism with neighborhood character, housing availability, and safety. Some leaders also want to strengthen enforcement regulations, which they say are too lax. Tonight's meeting begins at 6:30 at the Public Safety Building. Savannah leaders are moving forward with discussions on a possible new parking garage at Eastern Wharf. The $31 million project would add hundreds of parking spaces to one of downtown's fastest growing areas. A first reading was held last Thursday on the plan, and it would involve the city using bond financing with future parking fees helping to repay those costs over time rather than using property taxes. We also asked the mayor about calls for additional parking garages for hospitality workers and some in the Starland district. He says Savannah is trying to avoid becoming a city of parking garages and instead wants to expand transit and other transportation options.
Trying very hard to get away from building parking garages. They're big, they're very, very expensive, and they really serve no other use but for parking. We have to help save Chatham Area Transit, but on the other end of it, really create other ways for people to create mobility around our city. We don't want to become a city of parking garages.
The mayor says Eastern Wharf is different because a parking garage has been a part of the development plan for years, and that other parts of the city present different space cost and neighborhood challenges. Looking ahead now, WSAV's Schools Out Summer Food Drive is continuing, and we are holding another collection event tomorrow. This time, members of our team will be at the Food Lion on 1017 US Highway 80 in Pooler. Now, WSAV is proud to once again be partnering with Second Harvest and Food Lion to help ensure students have access to nutritious meals while they're on their summer break. We have a list of items we are requesting, as well as the full schedule of our remaining live collection events on our website, wsav.com/fooddrive.